Here the sage Maitreya admits that he explained the incident of the killing of Hiranyaksha by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a straight narration. He did not manufacture anything or add interpretation, but explained whatever he had heard from his spiritual master. Thus he accepted as bona fide the system of parampara, or receiving the transcendental message in disciplic succession. Unless received by this bona fide process of hearing from a spiritual master, the statement of an acharya or preceptor cannot be valid. It is also stated here that although the demon Hiranyaksha was unlimited in prowess, he was just like a doll for the Lord. A child breaks so many dolls without real endeavor. Although a demon may be very powerful and extraordinary in the eyes of an ordinary man in the material world, to the Lord killing such a demon is no difficulty. He can kill millions of demons as simply as a child plays with dolls and breaks them. So continuing with the narration of the wonderful pastime of Lord Varahadev and the demon Hiranyaksha, Maitreya Rishi is narrating this pastime to Vidura. In the last verse, the verse before this, Maitreya said that after killing the demon Hiranyaksha, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, Hari, he is the origin of the boar species, he returned to his own abode where there is always an uninterrupted festival. So the Lord has killed the demon and he has returned to his abode, and Maitreya Rishi is telling Vidura now in this verse that I have explained to you the personality of Godhead's coming down as the first boar incarnation. The boar incarnation is considered to be the first incarnation in the period of creation and destruction. And then he mentions that I have narrated to you as I have heard it from my predecessor spiritual master. So we see how Maitreya Rishi, he is a great Rishi, a pure devotee, and after he has narrated the entire pastime, he is saying, he is giving the credit to his spiritual master. It's a very good mood for the devotees also. Whenever we, when we are preaching, this is the mood in which we should be preaching or talking about Krishna consciousness. After narrating this pastime so wonderfully, he says, I have explained to you, I have narrated to you the way I heard it from my spiritual master. So here, what is it that was explained by Maitreya Rishi? The coming down of the first boar incarnation. Actually, this first boar incarnation, the way Lord Varahadev descended is very interesting, and we read it some time back. The conversation was going on between Manu and Brahma. Manu is one of the Prajapatis, Brahma's son. So when Brahma told Manu that please engage in creating, in creating living entities, in creating praja, fill the planet Earth with population, because that was the task that Brahma had given to Manu. So at that time, what had happened is that the earth had fallen into the ocean, the Garbhodaka ocean. So Manu saw that Brahma has told me to populate this planet Earth, but the planet Earth itself is not there. The earth had fallen into the ocean. So Manu requested Brahma that, my dear Lord, you are telling me to create, but the earth is not there right now, it has fallen into the ocean. So can you please do something? Can you please lift the earth out of the ocean so that I can create population on this planet Earth? So then Brahma started thinking, actually Brahma, while he was engaged in the process of creation, this has happened, how Hiranyaksha had dislocated the earth and it had fallen into the depths of the ocean. Now to lift a whole planet from an ocean, and what kind of an ocean? Not the ocean that we have in the planet Earth. The earth itself is in an ocean, in the Garbhodaka ocean, a huge ocean, unlimited ocean. So it was definitely a very Herculean task for Brahma. And so Brahma started meditating, thinking how to lift the earth back out of the ocean. And he realized it's very difficult. So what Brahma did, he just started meditating on the Supreme Lord Hari. He asked direction from the Supreme Lord Hari to direct them how to perform this impossible task. It was a very difficult task. As devotees, sometimes we also face, in the matter of our devotional service itself, sometimes we are faced with very difficult tasks, right? The task may appear to be quite perplexing. We get perplexed sometimes in some tasks that we are given. But Prabhupada writes, although sometimes devotees are perplexed with some very difficult tasks, they are never discouraged. To be perplexed is one thing, but then because the task is very difficult, we become very discouraged and then we don't do that task. That shouldn't happen. Just like the Pandavas also, they were sometimes placed in very perplexing situations, but they were never discouraged. They always had faith in the plan of the Lord. They knew that the Lord is there and the Lord will definitely protect them. So similarly, Brahma also, he was quite perplexed. The whole planet Earth has fallen to the Garbhodaka ocean, but he never became discouraged. He had faith in the plan of the Lord, so he prayed to the Lord for his direction. Avashya Rakshive Krishna. We hear one of the processes surrenders. Krishna is definitely there and he will protect. Krishna will find a way. Although this task is very difficult, if I have faith, Lord is there, the Lord is there as my best friend and he's there to help me always. We can accomplish the most difficult task with the help of the Lord. Our endeavor has to be there and the mercy of the Lord should also be there. So, while Brahma was thinking like this, he was praying to the Lord for his direction, a very wonderful thing happened. What happened? From Brahma's nose, a small Varaha came out. And that size of that Varaha which came out of Brahma's nose was the size of the upper portion of the tip of the thumb. Just a small one. So Brahma was very bewildered. Who is this living entity that has come out suddenly out of my nose from nowhere? You see how the Lord responded to Brahma's query. Brahma was just thinking, Manu asked Brahma, my dear father, please lift the earth. And it was not possible for Brahma to do this. So Brahma just started meditating on the Lord, seeking Lord's direction. And immediately, instantly the Lord responded. There came out the Varahadev from his nose. And as Brahma was watching, Lord Varaha came out as a small Varaha, small, less than 1 inch. And in just no time, Brahma was observing that Varaha he expanded himself to cover the entire sky of the entire universe. He became so huge in just no time. So Brahma was there, Marichi was there, and many other great sages were there at that time, watching all this wonderful thing happening. And they were all, thinking, wondering who this could be. Who is this entity that has just suddenly come out of... Brahma was quite perplexed because number one, the personality who came out of his nose came out without his, understanding. He had no control over it. And secondly, no time it became so big. So he was thinking, and is it the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu? Could be him, because who else it could be? Such a wonderful creation, such a wonderful pastime. So then, when Brahma was thinking whether it's Vishnu, Lord Vishnu in the form of a boar responded very nicely to Brahma's contemplation. He confirmed Brahma's contemplation that whether he is Vishnu, he confirmed it by roaring. And in the Bhagavatam it describes, he roared so tumultuously, his tumultuous roaring was, Bhagavatam compares it to be like a huge mountain. Something if you want to explain, make it of a very big magnitude. So the mountain has been compared. Now a very interesting point, Varahadev's roaring, his roaring was to confirm Brahma's contemplation. Yes, I am the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Just like you are thinking about something and you want to ask someone, he will confirm it to you by saying yes, or some indication he'll make. So Lord Varahadev roared. That was his indication. Yes, I am Vishnu. Now, his roaring, his tumultuous roaring is compared to be like a huge mountain. What do we understand from this? Mountains don't roar, right? So a very wonderful, this is knowledge in parampara. As Prabhupada is writing in the purport, we have to take knowledge from the parampara. So this is a very interesting parampara knowledge that we receive. So according to Bhagavatam, the mountains also roar. And the magnitude of roaring or the volume of roaring is proportionate to the magnitude of its body. Magnitude of the material body. So mountains are huge, right? So you can imagine the amount of the volume that his roaring would have, gotten. So mountains are roaring. There are two types of living entities, Sthavara and Jangama. Sthavara means those who are stationary, and Jangama those who are moving. So in Sthavara, our scriptures describe, one is the plant species, another is the mountains also. So mountains, although their consciousness is practically nil, nothing, but they are also considered as living entities. Of course, it's not by and large general, but this is something that the Bhagavatam mentions, and that's an interesting piece of information that we get from the parampara succession, from the disciplic succession. So the Lord roared, and his roaring is explained, it was very fearful to all the demons. But for the devotees, his roaring was very enlivening. And the devotees took special pleasure in hearing that roaring sound. Imagine if a big roar starts roaring occurs. You'll all get, very afraid. But not for the devotees. For the devotees, they knew that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our dear Lord has descended to protect us from the hands of this demon Hiranyaksha. So they immediately all of them started chanting the Vedic mantras. So this was the way Lord Varahadev incarnated, and a very wonderful pastime. Although the Lord, he incarnated in a Varaha, in a boar form. Now generally the boar is, a hog. What is a hog? A material hog is something which is, we don't like to touch. It's something which is dirty or something like that. But when the Lord takes the form of Varaha, when the Lord himself takes it is transcendental. And his form of Lord Varaha was transcendental, was full of knowledge and very merciful, because he descended to protect his devotees. So this form of the Lord, that is Bhu Varaha, and why did he take? We heard sometimes back in some of these classes, why did Lord specifically take this incarnation of Bhu Varaha? His name is Bhu Varaha. Because Varaha, he had to search out the planet Earth. The Earth had fallen into the Garbhodaka ocean, at depths of the Garbhodaka ocean, that is at the base of the universe. Base of the universe is a resident for all the Patala Loka, all the inhabitants who have performed sinful activities and who are suffering in hellish planets. Those hellish planets are at the bottom of the universe, in the Garbhodaka ocean. So that's the place where the earth had fallen. So the Lord had to search out the earth. So Varaha, a hog, is very expert in searching after something by sniffing, by smelling. So it could smell. The earth also has a smell, right? We all know it has got a very nice smell. So the Lord, only in the form of Varahadev, could smell the earth, and that's how he could lift the earth back from the Garbhodaka ocean. And after lifting it, he placed it in its orbit. And then the great fight between Hiranyaksha and Lord Varahadev, which we read in this chapter, ensued, and now the Lord has killed. This incarnation of the Lord, Varahadev, he is also called as the Vedas personified. Varahadev is Vedas personified. How Varahadev is Vedas personified? The Supreme Lord, we know, He gave this knowledge of Vedas to Brahma. And how did He give this knowledge of Vedas to Brahma? He breathed out the Vedas. Right? We have heard Prabhupada writes many places that the Supreme Lord breathed out the Vedas. And that breath in which the Vedas were contained, that breath was inhaled by Brahma. And that's how he got the Vedic knowledge. And now, Brahma, by his breathing process, appeared Lord Varahadev again. Right? So Brahma inhaled the breath which was the Vedas, and then he breathed out Varahadev, and that's how Varahadev is called the Vedas personified. So this pastime, it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam that one who hears this wonderful pastime of the appearance of Lord Varahadev, what is the benefit? Shrinvita bhaktya shravayeta voshitum. Shrinvita, if you are hearing this, bhaktya in devotion, and shravayeta, you allow others to hear, you can very easily please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one hears and describes in devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Lord bore, which is worthy of description, the Lord who is within the heart of everyone is very pleased. It is said the goal of life is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the simple way to please Him is just by hearing these wonderful pastimes. It is said that the Supreme Lord descends. In the Bhagavad Gita we read Yada Yadai Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati. And it says that there are three reasons why He descends. Paritranaya Sadhunam, Vinashaya Cha Dushkritam, and Dharma Samsthapanarthaya. Elsewhere, it is mentioned, connected to this only, why the Supreme Lord descends in this wonderful and performs wonderful pastimes. He does so just because there are subject matters created about hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. If the Lord wouldn't descend and perform such wonderful pastimes, what would we be hearing? It is said that the way to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to get freed from this material contamination is Shravanam, is hearing. So the Lord specifically, the reason why He descends is He performs His wonderful pastimes and they become the subject matters for hearing. Prabhupada very nicely explains in the Bhagavatam how we should hear. He gives special stress on the process of hearing, how important hearing is. So there is one word in the 3rd chapter. The word is called nivishtas. Nivishtas actually in Sanskrit means hearing. Now how we should hear? Every verse that is there in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes a synonym, then he writes a translation, and then he gives a purport. Prabhupada, to explain this word nivishtas, it's very interesting to see how he gives one kind of a meaning in the synonym, and then he gives even more stress on it in the translation, and even more stress on it in the purport. So this is with reference to how Shukadev Goswami, when he heard it from, when he narrated it to narrated the Srimad Bhagavatam Maharaj Parikshit, how Suta Goswami heard the narrations of the wonderful pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He said he heard it, he used the word nivishtas. In that synonym, Prabhupada translates this word nivishtaha as being perfectly attentive. So when we are hearing the pastimes, when we are hearing Bhagavatam, we should be perfectly attentive. In the translation, Prabhupada lays even more stress to this word and he says, O learned Brahmana, I heard Shukadev Goswami, I heard him with rapt attention. So there he says being perfectly attentive. Then he further says you have to hear with rapt attention. And then in the translation, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, the word nivishta means that Suta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through the ears. You see, being perfectly attentive, hearing it with rapt attention, and hearing it how? By drinking the juice of Bhagavatam through the ears. And Prabhupada writes, this is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. He further writes, one should hear with rapt attention. Fine, but from whom? That's the most important thing. Hearing it from the rapt attention, from the real person. That is what in the purport also Prabhupada is writing. We have to hear this pastime. Maitreya Rishi says, the way he heard it from the parampara, from his spiritual master, from his teachers, the same way he is repeating it. Actually, if you see, if you have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam very attentively, hear it with rapt attention, what is involved in hearing attentively? Which sense is involved? The mind, right? Now, you cannot hear it attentively with rapt attention unless the mind is pure. Is it not? Because attention means mind must be there. So mind has to be pure. So, now are our minds pure? No. Why our minds are not pure? Mind will become pure only if we are pure in action. And what is that purity in action? How do we become pure in action? We can become pure in action. Prabhupada is explaining this very nicely. We can become pure in action only if we are pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. So, unless and until we are pure in our eating, sleeping, mating, defending all these things, we are not pure in our actions. If we are not pure in our actions, there cannot be purity in mind. And if we are not pure in mind, we will not be able to hear Bhagavatam attentively because the mind is involved. And then Prabhupada says, but somehow or the other, if one hears with rapt attention from the right person, a person who's coming in the disciplic succession in the parampara, then very easily you can become purified, and you can not just become purified, Prabhupada writes, you can see Lord Krishna in every page of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the advantage. Although we have no qualification, no purity in action, not a pure mind, but just by hearing from the parampara, in the right process, we can see Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam. So this is the benefit of receiving knowledge in the parampara, and we can be assured of success in our Krishna consciousness if we have surrendered to a pure devotee. Just a few more couple of things. This Varahadev's pastime, we saw Maitreya Muni is explaining. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his name, one more name that we call Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Vishwambhar, right? Now Lord Varahadev, he appeared, he came, and he did two things in the Varaha incarnation, the Varaha Murti. He protected the earth, and then also Lord Varahadev is maintaining the earth. So he protected and maintained the earth. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name, Vishwambhar, what does Vishwambhar mean? Vishwambhar. Vishwa means this planet, earth, and Vishwambhar, Bhar means one who maintains or one who protects. So actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name Vishwambhar signifies that he is also the incarnation, he is synonymous, he is identical with the Varaha incarnation of Lord Krishna. So there is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in one pastime, it's very elaborately, Prabhupada mentions this reference in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he mentions there was one devotee, Murari Gupta, and to this devotee Murari Gupta, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his Varaha pastime. And it's very interesting, very nice it is mentioned how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once became, he was struck with emotions of Lord Varahadev. And he displayed his Varaha Murti to Murari Gupta and he enacted the pastime very interestingly. So there was a small kamandalu, a water pot kept on the floor. So he lifted that water pot and which was filled with water and which had a spout as a symbolic display of pastime of lifting the planet Earth. And this is the pastime that he performed and he displayed it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And soon after this pastime of exhibiting his Varaha Murti form to Murari Gupta, it was immediately after this that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the meaning of the verse that Harer Nama Eva Kevalam Kalo Nasteva Nas. We know that very famous popular verse from Brihad Naradiya Puran. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the meaning of this verse to Murari Gupta soon after explaining this Varaha pastime that we shall discuss sometimes later. So this so there are just a few more verses remaining, and one more in the purport of this paragraph. It is mentioned how Hiranyaksha was killed by Lord Varahadev. Hiranyaksha was a great demon, right? But this great demon was killed by Lord Varahadev, just like a child would turn or destroy a doll. So this is the wonderful narration. A child breaks so many dolls without real endeavor. Similarly, although a demon may be very powerful and extraordinary in the eyes of an ordinary man in the material world, to the Lord, killing such a demon is no difficulty. He can kill millions of demons as simply as a child plays with doll and breaks them. We'll end here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Gaur Premanand.